Live for the first time, definitely. Definitely the first time.
100%. We did not have to restart because of technical difficulties.
Yeah, I wasn't stupid. I didn't do a dumb. well, for anyone who's wondering, I did a dumb when I made the thing, but uh, I am Club Kyle, and this is Throwing the Podcast. Uh, and join me today in this ensuing chaos. We must address the most beloved elephant in the room and give him his shot. How you doing, Titan?
Oh, yes. I'm doing great.
That's good.
I'm just waiting to where I can throw away my real life character and make a new one. I'm just waiting to where I can throw away
Oh
my
my
real life
god.
character. I had to make the joke,
No,
dude.
not
I
you.
had to.
Just I was trying to delete the old video, but and then I got an echo. Sorry again, but I'm not restarting again for this. But anyways, but speaking of characters, today we're here to do a couple of questions for Titan's characters, and Deacon maybe join us later. If he does, we'll ask Korvac some. If not, we will do a Q&A with Solus and Korvac. But for now, I think,
Whichever happens first.
yeah, but I think a good question to start out with is, who has been your favorite character to play in this campaign,
Isabelle.
and why?
Pure chaos.
Could you go into more detail about that?
Uh, well, one, she honestly, I love warlocks. I love warlocks a lot, but
They're a fun class.
and which Marks was a warlocks for a good bit of time too, but different kind, because
Pack of the Chain and Pack of the Blade are very different subclasses.
yeah, they are. Well, that's not a lot of it. A lot of it was just Marks was the way Marks started off kind of affected how I had to play him as a warlock, which is very different.
Yeah. So, what about Isabelle is different from Mark's in terms of playing them, not in terms of personality, because the clear cuts of their personalities are as clear as all whatever the phrase in vinegar. But
Yeah. Well, mechanically, I built her a lot differently. Like she's a charm buff for sure.
mhm.
Uh, honestly, I like her style a whole lot more. She's a lot more control the battlefield type than like go pure damage on it.
Which is kind of ironic considering she hates control in general.
Yeah, it is.
Now, we know, we've talked about this, you've admitted this before, but you said you hated playing Marks.
I did.
Could you go more into that? I'm curious why you hated playing this particular character. Like, why did you not like playing this character?
First off, I fucked him up at first. I played him. The very first session we had, which was not on stream, but I completely messed up his personality from what I had originally planned it to be.
Okay, what was your original intent then?
I was imagining a bit more of like you know how I went from the straight off of the first session like very like justice hungry kind of,
Yeah, but I don't know your original
but
intent.
my original point was a lot more like calm and just like kind of try to he was a lot more secretive trying to like hide from Kirksvane than what he actually ended up being.
Okay, so you did enjoy what he became as a result of that, as opposed to any personal things like.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of personal depth to it. He was a good character, and honestly, but the biggest part that made me want to stop was the fact of there wasn't really much in terms of arcs for him.
Aside from Thomas.
Yeah, aside for Thomas, but after that, I really couldn't see anything, and the whole thing with Thomas was his husband and stuff, and whenever like he saw his like husband right there, and then got the whole curse thing,
Yeah.
uh, he kind of gave up. I'm not gonna lie, I could not think of anything else for him other than okay, yeah, he's done.
Okay, that's fair. While I don't personally agree with that, assuming that Marx did stay, did you have any future plans for him? Or was it just Thomas? Like, that was always the end goal, and then after that, you didn't know? Like,
No, he probably would have had more stuff. Most of it would probably have just been helping out Garrick and all them, but he would have had more stuff. I would have just had to come up with it on the fly.
well, true, because in D&D, we tend not to we don't tend to like have our characters stay the same as when we wrote them. We encounter a lot of things we weren't expecting.
Hmm. Anything else that would have came up from it would have been as a result of actions in the story.
That's fair. Now, with that being said, you got rid of Marks, and we were all a little like me and Rich particular because Alice Deacon they only got to know him like maybe 2, maybe 3 sessions. Then you gave us the and an act of divine providence, we got the most beloved elephant in the room. So, how did Marlow come to be?
Dead honest, me and Jacob were on a call. We were, I had just whipped up, I was like, oh, okay, Loxodon are a thing, and I had just gotten them. And I was like, oh, let me like whip up a quick like character that like maybe I'll play in a different session for this. And then me and Jacob started talking about it, and we like for the first thing I had ever like said concerning Marlow was pish posh.
And we all know what came with that.
Mm-hmm. And me and him like were talking about like if this character was a character in the campaign or something, like what would it be? And then like a lot of it just kept going on, and I was like, what if this would be the case instead of the one that I had previously had planned that obviously never came to be.
Yep.
Yeah, we both kind of just were like, oh yeah, that's great, we should do that one.
Yep. But so it wasn't really a planned thing. It was just like, hey, we're talking about this, and then like, oh, this is a good
Yeah,
idea.
it was more of a, hey, we're talking about this. This seems like a cool idea. I did not expect the reaction to him to be as great as it was.
Well, the thing is, Marlow. To me, Marlow just Marlow. How to phrase this? Like, when you first met him, you knew what he was about, and he became immediately endearing.
Yeah.
But so how did some of the more other aspects of Marlow came out? Now that he's confirmed dead, how did some of the other stuff we did know? Like, what were some stuff we didn't know about him?
Uh, Not a whole lot. He had family back in his old place. Not like, direct family, but like, family.
Actually, that could lead in. What was his home? We never got the chance to see it, and if we do, it will probably be abandoned because you have confirmed, you and Jake have confirmed that Marlow is dead. What was his home like?
Well,
what were people like?
From what Jacob has said, his home, like his like home like clan like place is not dead. Just Marlow himself is dead.
Okay, well, either way, what was that place like when Marlow was there? Like, what are the people? Like?
It was a very vibrant place, like very like nature based. Like their houses were like these giant trees, and like pretty much everywhere you looked, there were flora and fauna everywhere.
Okay.
It was a very utopia like type thing.
So you would, for an analogy, it'd be like a druid circle.
Yeah, pretty much like a druid settlement.
Mm.
Or like wood elf settlements that you would imagine.
Now you said, I don't think Loxodons were the only race there. Like, when you say Marlow...
No, I said that wood elves were also there.
Okay, so when you say Marlow's family, were there any NPCs that you knew of, that Jacob told you of, or was that...
No, not that I had knew of.
Okay, so if we ever meet someone, if we ever end up there, it will be a complete surprise.
Yes, it will be a surprise to even me.
Alright. And then, what was the deal with his hummingbird? We didn't get a lot of screen time with it, but
Oh, his hawk?
Yeah, his hawk, my bad, yeah, his hawk.
Yeah, his hawk, is there anything specific you want to know? Because I kind of need a little bit more detail on that.
Well, it obviously wasn't familiar because paladins do not have that spell unless you took a certain feat for it. So
no, it was just a pet.
Then how did they meet? Like, how did they form their bond, for lack of a better term?
To put it real simply, one day while in the Eastern Kingdom, this hawk just swooped into Marlow's home and just decided that he was there now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
and ever since they just kind of have always been together.
Effectively, it was a Isabelle situation where she's just there now.
Yep.
Yeah, this thing's just there now. Okay, except the hawk was not as chaotic.
No.
But if it had the power,
If it had the power, it probably would have been.
yeah.
If you gave it the powers of a warlock, I'm sure it would probably destroy the world.
But did Marlow ever talk to the hawk? Like, because Marlow was an oathly agent, so he would have had to speak with animals. Like, what were the conversations like between the two? I am honestly curious.
Depending on what had happened previously, it could have either gone like a nice just plain conversation between the two, or if the hawk was in his cranky mood as you had saw in the campaign, it would result in a lot of fuck yous being thrown around.
Okay. So, yeah, so what now to draw back on Marks, what was Marks's opinion of the fellow party members? Like, how did he feel about them? I'm curious.
Each individually or as a whole?
Both. Each individually and as a whole.
His opinion of Garrick was that he was a good friend.
Okay. Ellerin?
Ellerin was a quiet guy, but at the very least, he was very reliable.
Okay, so reliability more than a friendship. I mean, there was a friendship.
Yeah, I mean, they were friends, but like, it was his opinion was more of okay, he's reliable than okay, he's a great friend.
Okay, and you only knew them for a little bit of time, but what were your opinions on Rasmira and Korvac as Marks?
His opinion on Rasmira would definitely have been poor girl, just like straight up like pity.
Okay, and for
because
Korvac?
when he met her, she was scared of her own shadow.
Yeah. And then for Korvac?
And Korvac, honestly, not gonna lie, a little bit of disdain because he came on real strong.
He did, but he tempered it with time. And then Jacob asked a question in the Discord channel. Would Marlow have left any journal entries at his home before his death? Like, basically, would he, like...
Yes, he would have. He would have left, both personal notes and notes regarding the war.
And this is going to get dark, but before I ask how Marlow felt about the party, I have to ask, how did Marlow face his death? Like, what was going through his head?
Honestly, his whole life would have flashed before his eyes.
Okay.
He would realize that he had a lot of regrets, but at the same time, he wouldn't want any of it to change.
Okay then. So I guess we have those to look forward to, the journals if we ever go. But for the sake of spoilers, I'm not gonna ask what would be in those journals. But how did Marlow honestly feel about the part? How did Marks feel about the party as a whole?
Marks, as the party as a whole, they were a good group of friends that he could call family.
Okay. And now moving on to Marlow. What was Marlow's thoughts on each individual member, and then finally as a whole?
His thoughts on Ellerin. I have to say this one first, because they're absolutely fucking hilarious.
I'm sure. I'm looking forward to it.
I swear to God, if they ever have a child, I'm going to give it the hardest time!
Yep.
But honest to God, his thoughts on Ellerin were he was a good kid, and he thought that he would make a great husband for
Estine.
Yeah, Estine.
To go into that a little further, what was the relationship between Estine and Marlow beyond that of a teacher and a student? Because there was a clear connection there.
Kind of like an uncle situation. Okay. But with her, I'm gonna be honest, it was a little bit more of a fatherly situation because he kind of had to take up and like kind of look after them all after
Xander died.
After Xander died.
Which will lead to a question after this, but with the rest of the party also, oh no, 201, final worst pish posh, you know it.
Pish posh.
But he said it, but but to the rest of the party, how did you feel about the rest of them?
when it came to Xander, he thought Xander was a great guy who would protect the world with his very life, which obviously he did.
Which we'll get
But at the same time, he also felt really bad for you because
Garrick.
yeah, for Garrick,
Yeah.
because he looked at Garrick and he saw a man who was very clearly trying to take everything upon himself.
Yeah.
And he knew from personal experience that does not work.
Well, it doesn't work for the individual rather than the whole.
Yeah.
But okay, what about Rasmira and Korvac?
Rasmira, with Rasmira, he saw like a lot of potential in Rasmira and knew that one day she would be like really great. At the same time, his current view on Rasmira was kind of like she needs help.
Yeah. And then finally, Korvac.
Korvac.
Korvac's an interesting character because up until Isabelle, he was the one with the most like outside views with the party, but at the same time, he never let it go too far, and he always stood up for, like, helping.
When it came to Korvac, his views on Korvac was that he was a very, I don't know how to say this.
Brash, abrasive.
Yeah, very brash, very like a bit too headstrong. Honestly, he was more worried about Korvac, if anything.
That's understandable. A question from Jacob, which does relate to this. How would Marlow react to the current events? Thoughts, actions, decisions. Like, let's say Marlow survived, and let's say, for the sake of argument, he met Isabelle. He went on the journey to, Crime Central. How would he react to all of that? What would be his thoughts? What would be his mindset? Stuff like that.
With Marlow, that's a bit hard because his mindset can be very narrow at some points.
It can, but I am also curious about this along with Jacob. Like, how would he react to Isabelle? What decisions?
With Isabelle, he would be wary, but at the same time, as long as there was no threat to, like, the royals and the people who he called his family, he would not care that much.
And if he ever found out that there was a threat, because there is,
he would immediately jump on it and try to stop it.
Fair enough. And then how would he react to that nation? Because that nation is pretty much, I think that would be like Marlow's personal hell, other than the East. Like, a nation full of crime where, like, just, and on top of that,
honestly,
on top of that, it's very the opposite of his home because that was an industrial nation.
Yeah. When it came to that nation, when it comes to that nation, I feel like Marlow's whole view on that situation would probably, I don't exactly know how to put this. It'd be a lot less like, hatred for it or something, and more of a knowing that it will eventually collapse on itself type deal.
So, a sense of pity.
Yes.
Interesting.
No, because he would understand that something like that would eventually crumble because mistrust and, greed.
Exactly. I would agree with that from my own perspectives, but how would you feel about the industrialization aspect of it? As Marlow is a character who loved nature. Like, he really cared about nature. The industrialization, it can be very easily seen as the death of nature, as, like, telling nature to screw itself. Like, how would he feel about
Honestly, his whole view on the industrialization part would have to, it's a little bit more nuanced than, like, okay, it's killing nature. It's a little bit more of, okay, this is nice, but please take it slow. Otherwise, things will go bad.
So, his views would be akin to telling Icarus to be wary of the sun, because he knows what
exactly.
And back on the original question, because I forgot to ask this, how would he feel about the party as a whole?
He would think that they were a good group of people and that he was right to trust them in leaving the security of this country. And
Yeah. Now, with that being said, Jacob asked another question. How would he have left the current position of his homeland, like since the rebellion? Like, what would he had hoped to leave his homeland in after his
what
death?
he would have hoped to leave it as, he would have hoped to leave it in a good position where it's no longer a one-sided fight, and there's at least a chance of them coming out on top.
Which, according to
Now,
Jacob,
what he would have actually left it as is a lot more sad.
now what would he have left it as? Because according to Jacob, the rebellion in the east is going strong. So, with that in mind, considering that his parents are just like allowing this to happen, what did he leave it as?
He probably would have left it not like I said where there's like a chance, because obviously what they're going up against.
There is no chance.
But he probably would have left it in a situation where they're at least doing fine. I wouldn't say strong necessarily, but where there's a chance of them surviving it at least.
That's. Which there is, because, again, as Jacob said, Marlow did not die in vain. The rebellion there is still going strong, and apparently, according to last session, there are people even within the higher ups that are disinterested and distrusting of the current ruling system. So,
I don't think there's much they can do about that.
oh no, there is not much they can do about it, but at the very least, they could have potential allies. So,
Yeah, allies on the inside.
mhm.
So that's kind of how he would have left it and how he would have hoped to left it.
Yeah. But yeah. That is a thing. But because I am curious about this from a personal level, what would Marlowe have thought of Garrick's decision to spare Thomas? And what would Marks have thought, like if he could speak? Because we didn't get into that in the game. So I'm curious how those two characters, in particular those two characters, felt about that.
Well, Mark straight up told you.
I can't remember.
It was, remember whenever he ascended to godhood, because if you
Yeah, that's right. You're welcome.
Mark said that he was proud of your decision.
Okay, and how would Marlowe...
It's not the decision that he personally would have made, but he feels that it was the right one.
And how would Marlowe have felt? Because Marlowe admitted by his own admission that he probably would have just killed Thomas if he could have seen Garrick do what he did.
Marlowe didn't disagree with what you wanted to do, but rather but his views on the situation was that it could not be done.
But
so honestly, he would be impressed because you did something that he thought was impossible.
At the cost of his literal life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So with that being said, I was curious about that because Thomas is a character that had a big influence on Marx, and Marlowe absolutely despised because of what he did.
Yeah.
And finally, before I ask you some questions about your new character, I have one last question about Marlowe.
All right.
With Xander, the King Xander, Helena's wife, King of Goodell and all that, what was the story there? Like, beginning to end, like, how did they meet? How did they feel about each other? And then at the end, how did Marlowe feel about his actions?
When it comes down to that, how they all met was he was already the teacher for Helena whenever she was growing up.
I did not know.
Because obviously, Loxodon, very old. But so he was basically there as she grew up and as Xander came up with her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that went, and where it ended with Xander was his decision to go alone to go look for the or not alone, but without Marlowe. This would have been shown, but I wasn't here for a session, so I didn't get to do the memory thing with Morden. But the final talk between between Marlow and Xander was Marlow arguing with Xander about him not going with, and Xander basically continuing to tell him he couldn't until eventually Xander himself was just like, "You're not coming. That's final."
And then what happened came to pass. Xander died. Helena's family suffered. So,
And basically, Marlow kind of grew up with that, kind of went up with that guilt of, I didn't get to help him. I should have just went with.
so Marlow felt that if he had gone, he could have stopped the bad stuff from happening, and things could have turned out better.
Or at least have sacrificed himself and had Xander go
So,
back.
okay then. So Marlow had survivor's guilt.
Yes.
Did that play any factor into Marlow's leaving? Because Rich asked this earlier, and I want to save this for the end, but Marlow's leaving was a huge loss for the party. I think everyone could agree.
It did have a major part in it.
Yeah. So could you?
He'd already let something else important to him die, and he couldn't sit there and watch his own homeland died too.
Okay, but going on that, what was Marlow's mindset? In meta, what was your mindset about Marlow leaving? And in game, what was Marlow thinking? What when he left? Like, to go into more detail, like what was like driving him to do this?
In meta, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know if I should do this or not. If I should make this a thing. So, and like, I couldn't decide in my own head. So what I did was I pulled up a dice roll and rolled for it. Because I could not decide for myself. So I pulled that up, I rolled for it, and that's what came out. But his mindset for it was very... there was the survivor's guilt. He was already feeling guilty about not being able to save Xander, and that was only amplified by the previous events.
Mm-hmm. As Marlow
and
his dead friend.
Yeah. And when it came down to, he'd already knew that the rebellion in the East was losing heavily, and he didn't want to watch it go too. So he figured he'd either go there and help them rise back up, or die trying.
The timing felt off, though. Like, from a player's perspective, as a guy who had to watch this character leave, it felt weird that,
Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah, I think it would have been received better had he had left after the battle in Goodell.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so Marlow, at the end, was just guilt-ridden with survivor's guilt, driving him to do something that, honestly, he probably shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that being said, we've addressed the elephant in the room, but now time for the chaos in the room. Isabelle.
Ah, yes.
How did Isabelle
The
come
pure
to be?
chaotic. Isabelle was another, like, not last minute, but it was one that because I had not decided on Isabelle yet whenever it came to be, but Jacob had already announced a character, one that I had already told him I wasn't going to do, but he had already announced a character, so I was like, damn it, we're probably going to do this soon, so now I have to come up with something. And I came up with Isabelle, and her personality is one that kind of came off differently than I meant it to be, but I kind of like where it went.
It's clear, because in the early days, it was heavily implied that Isabelle was this because of the life she had lived, and it was implied a little bit that she didn't want to be this way. So, what was the turning point for that? What was intended, and then how did it become what it became?
What was intended was me, like, I was like, okay, this could be a really nice redemption arc. Basically, she stops being so chaotic and stops doing all this stuff, and like eventually she just becomes a normal person. And then I was thinking, but what if I didn't do that and I amplified it?
Okay, and what? I mean, I know what amplified it. I think it's pretty obvious, but I want to hear from you. What did amplify that?
The breaking point was her decision to kill Amelie, but it was also a little bit before that. Uh, the big breaking point was I don't know how. The big breaking point was basically being left for dead, but it didn't kick in until the Amelie thing.
Right, because in a previous encounter with an NPC, Isabelle was willing to kill Eric because he threatened to kill the love of her life. What caused the jump between that and having her herself kill Amelie?
Honestly?
Yes, honestly.
No, I know. I'm just give me a minute.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I have to think to how to put this into words.
Because like that's a very big jump, and while it's a believable jump, it does bear explanation.
Honestly, it was the sound of her voice and the words she was saying. She had come to realize that the person that she knew was no longer in there. This was somebody completely different than the woman that she knew and fell in love with, and this was somebody completely different that she was dealing with.
What was Isabelle hoping would happen with her death?
Honestly, she was hoping that she could just forget about it all.
But she couldn't, obviously.
Yeah, she couldn't. And when she did it, instead what happened was something just completely snapped.
Which led to her decision. Because
yes.
Here's my view on it. And I'll ask you if this is right or wrong, because this is a spoiler thing. So I don't want you to confirm anything. But the way I see it, Isabelle wants just to not feel the pain anymore, I think is what Isabelle is going. So I think in her mind, destroying everything, including herself, will be a way for her to no longer feel the pain. How close am I to that, or am I wrong?
That is okay. That's both true and untrue at the same time.
Interesting. It's up to you whether you want to go into further detail about it, because this is a thing with your character. This is an ongoing event, which, if we're going to be honest, it could end next session, depending on what happens. So
yeah, depending on what happens, it could very well end. I hope it doesn't. But if it does, it does. Yeah. But I don't know how to say this.
If we don't want to.
In some way, yes, she is like, it is kind of like she doesn't want to feel anymore. But on the other hand, her view of like watching the world be destroyed and like watching it burn away and stuff is her way of basically she's thinking it's a new start. Everything can change, everything can start again, maybe things will be different.
Which inherently, from a meta perspective, is very flawed.
It is very flawed from a meta perspective, but you also have to understand this isn't from a meta perspective. It's from a personality perspective.
It's from a personality perspective. So in her mind, she thinks she is doing the best thing for existence. Then.
Yeah, no, because you also have to understand she came up from a very corrupt place.
Exactly.
Her entire life was watching people stab each other in the back 24/7, watching people go from being great people to being terrible people.
And then
so her whole view of this world is highly altered.
Yeah, which it's rough for a child, but on top of that, one thing you forgot to mention is that all of that, she had to live in constant fear of happening to her.
Oh, yeah.
And then the one good thing in her life fell to the same corruption, so it's no wonder why she views the way she does.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that being said, because that's something for a character. We have had plenty of characters in this campaign who feel like the world needs a hard reset, but I believe that Isabelle is the only one who will actually do it if given the chance.
Yeah, probably.
would she feel? And she does not care if she goes, clearly,
No, not at all.
she just wants this to be over. Is there a chance her mindset could change?
I don't want to say there isn't, but if there is, it's very small.
It's very small. Now, to go away from this topic, because this was the big topic that honestly... Oh, Jacob asked a question before I asked mine. If Isabelle could remove one particular place and become peace in mind, if at all, what is the place she would get rid of? I'm pretty sure it's pretty obvious where she would get rid of, but for the sake of a Titan, what place would she just get rid of?
Not the whole country, first of all, because we all know what it's going to be.
Yeah, obviously.
But not the whole country. Honestly, because the thing is about the country is, though it is very corrupt, there still are a whole lot of good people in there.
Yeah. A minute point when you're trying to destroy the world, but continue.
Yeah, a minute point. Honestly, if she had to, I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but the French area, the area with the French mafia.
French for lack of
aka Amelie's place.
Yeah. Okay, so just hers, or she would just get rid of that one?
She would just get rid of that one.
Interesting. Now, how does Isabelle feel about the party? As individuals and as a whole? Including Solus in this, because Isabelle has met Solus.
Yeah, Isabelle has met Solus. Her view on Garrick is he is a fool. Because he, as everybody has seen, Garrick is the most fucking hopeful person on the planet, even if he doesn't act like it.
Yeah, he is. So...
And she sees that hope as a fool's dream. Basically, he has all these wishes that something will come, and she basically, in her mind, even if it isn't necessarily true, knows it will never come.
Well, whether it comes or not, in any version of who wins the battle of philosophies here,
which, like I said, it may not be true, but in her mind, that's what she knows.
True. Yeah, I was curious about that, because Garrick and Isabelle are as opposite as can be, down to their philosophies on the world as a whole.
Yeah.
Garrick sees the good in people, Isabelle tends to see the worst in people, because both of them had to for their respective lives.
Yeah. They came from very similar situations and came out very differently.
Yeah, this is a case of, there was this Star Trek movie where Picard had a clone, and, that clone was in a very different living scenario. This is similar to this, where they both suffered. They both had their trials, but their philosophies and their views on the world were each shaped by their suffering. Garrick viewed the world as something that we can make this a better place if we be the change we want to. That is his whole deal. He wants to be the force that... He wants to change it for the better because he's seen the shit. Whereas Isabelle just thinks, to put it very, very, very simply, it sucks, it just needs a hard reset because there is no saving this damn place.
Oh yeah, no, it's terrible. Burn it all. Exactly.
Now, how about the other party members? Rasmira, Ellerin, Korvac, Solus.
When it comes to Solus, when it comes to Solus, because Solus is a very new member, but from what she has seen, honestly, because obviously, Solus first part we met her, he's burn all the fucking evildoers. Yeah. And now it's kind of toned down a little bit. What?
Okay.
Crap, I can't remember where I was.
Solus, evildoers toned down a little bit.
Oh yeah, toned it down a little bit. she sees Solus as someone who was on the right path and had the right idea and is now off of it.
Basically, they were similar, but then she thinks that Solus isn't going the extra step because Isabelle is willing to go that extra mile. Hello?
1 second.
Okay, while we wait, Vamping, if you guys are enjoying this, anyone listening enjoying this, whether it's our party or on YouTube, we appreciate your
All right. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's fine.
Continue.
Yeah, so basically, Solus is she views Solus as herself, but not going the step needed.
Basically, it was like, okay, you had the right idea, but now you've moved away.
Yeah. Now, how does she feel about Korvac? Because that's an interesting topic.
First, when it came to Korvac, she was like, okay, this dude seems pretty cool, like, cause like he was like one of the only people who was like, okay, yeah, she seems like a cool girl.
And
then now she sees him as an utter asshole.
Because of what he wanted to do to Amelie.
Yeah, and you know, just all the little fucking comments everywhere.
Yeah, well, you know. All right, how about the other two?
Ellerin, she doesn't really have much an opinion on, other than he's just really easily, like, very, very easily made mad.
So, it's just I like to prank you, bro.
Yeah. With Rasmira, honestly, she doesn't know.
Interesting, in that she doesn't know her enough, or she just can't read this woman.
Can't read her.
Oh. Alrighty then. And how does she feel about the party as a whole?
Roadblock.
But she'll happily use them to further her goal.
Oh yeah, no.
So
a roadblock that could double as tools.
Yeah. But because of what happened last session, there's a lot that can, like, the next session will pretty much determine what's going to happen, because...
Oh yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and for the record, I just want to say on the record, it was not my intent to meta that at all. I was playing...
I know! Jacob pulled that, and it made me mad, because I had plans. I was going to be the sneaky one, going around doing all the sneaky things, and then he was like, no, let me just tell them straight up.
He didn't tell them straight up. He just said he sensed darkness in her, but that was...
Yeah, which is enough to be like, okay, keep an eye.
Yeah, which... For your information...
Which kind of negates the whole being sneaky thing.
Exactly, but... At the same time, just to give you a heads up on this, the party is going... Like, Garrick in particular, the same...
I know, Jacob already told me.
Yeah, they're... And I think I told you too.
I can't meta it, but I know it's coming.
Yeah, because, you know...
I can't be like, oh no, she's out of town suddenly.
Yeah, no, which... For the sake of this, if you didn't know, you were just advertising your bar.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And then we made a joke about you...
I read your session notes.
Yeah, which we, Yeah, because, you know, I'm the only one who takes those, but, we joke that you poison your customers, like, are you going to poison them? No.
Oh, am I? It's like the customer, are you gonna poison me?
Probably
no.
Not.
But yes.
No, I think what I said was probably not. Who knows? Which, you know, it's the most...
Take a drink, find out.
Yeah.
The man who's just like, fine, you're lucky I want to get drunk.
Or dead. I'm suicidal.
Either way, don't care.
But, yeah, so... And finally, from a meta perspective, like, you know... How... Like, you know, like, what is the best part about playing Isabelle? And what's the worst part? Like, what is, like, the best part about playing Isabelle for you as a player? And what's
the best part? It's the first time I've ever played an evil character, for one.
Okay, so you're going on the record saying that Isabelle is evil.
She's not evil alignment, but I'm not. I can't lie. I can't lie and be like, this is not evil what she's doing.
Okay, so.
But I'm keeping her neutral because to her this isn't like, oh okay,
yeah,
this is an evil thing.
This does fit in the realm of chaotic neutral. I will grant you that.
Yeah, it does.
But
As long as there's some self-serving purpose in it, it can be neutral.
Well, up to a point, because evil,
Well, yeah.
yes, like self-serving is one thing. Doing stuff to actively harm people, whether it's even if it is self-serving, that's where it's crossing the line. But I don't think Isabelle wants anyone to suffer because she suffered. I think she just wants to Thanos it. Just
Yeah, just have it all gone.
no suffering, except for maybe Peter Parker with his Spidey sense. But that's unintentional.
I don't know. Maybe Garrick a little bit. Maybe he could suffer.
I don't get why she hates Garrick, because Garrick's the like.
She doesn't hate him.
Yeah, but like suffering, that's the thing.
That was a joke.
I know. I just wanted to, but yeah. So what is the best part about playing Isabelle? And what's the worst? From any avenue, be it
The best part is she's chaotic.
Now the worst part.
Well, I want to explain why the chaotic thing first.
That's fair.
Because she's chaotic, and sometimes I don't even know what she's gonna do until it happens.
Yeah.
Which makes it really fun, because there could be times where you'll make an insight check and be like, is she going to do this or something? And I could be like, no. But like in the moment she comes up with it.
Fair enough. And then what's the
because
worst
if you insight check something, it has to be something that's being very obviously in the purpose.
Yeah, which to be fair, probably knows well enough what can guess what her plans were. But what's the worst part about playing Isabelle?
The worst part is I basically put it up where there's going to be a lot of parts I miss. Because here's the thing, if I don't die, the chances are I'll have to leave the party.
Well, there's not, because there is a possibility that, like, you can lie your way out of it.
There is. But I don't trust fucking Ellerin and his high-ass charisma.
You mean wisdom.
Still, either way.
But with all of that being said, I would like to, before I ask the final question, because the one Jacob just posted, I think should be the final question for Isabelle, but what was the best part about playing Marks and Marlow, and what were the worst parts?
The best part about playing Marks and Marlow both, actually, were they were very genuine people, and they were both characters I could very well put my shoes into, or like walk in their shoes and feel what they feel, which I found really, really great to play them, and it made the experiences with them all that better.
Now, what was the worst?
The worst part with Marks is, like I said, I couldn't see him going any farther, and I pushed it for a long time.
And Marlow?
The worst part about playing Marlow is it felt like a lot of time I had to be like comedy relief almost, and I didn't really like that. I felt like that like if I do comedy relief stuff, I feel like it's like, okay, I want to do that, not like, okay, I feel like this has to happen.
Okay, that's fair. Now, the final question I want
But
to
even
ask
then,
you,
I got around that. It didn't like mess me up.
No, and that's fair. They were both really beloved characters. And Isabelle, we like her in meta. I like the concept of meta, just in-game, she's the hardest person to get along with.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And then, but Garrick is trying, like, he helped.
I have doubled down on that.
Exactly, but the final question I want to ask, and this is a good one, so props to you, Jacob. Let's say she succeeds. Let's say the party fails in stopping her. Let's say the world ends. But she survives. Like, she is a survivor. What would she do?
That is a good question.
It really is, and I think that's the perfect place to leave it on, because Isabelle wants it to end. Like, I'm pretty sure she does want it to end. But as long as
she does. She wants everything to be gone.
But she survives.
If that happens, the one thing she would want to do, if at all possible, is to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself.
So she would take it upon herself to become a watcher.
1 second.
Okay. Like I said earlier, we thank you guys for watching on YouTube. Feel free to like, share, subscribe.
I'm sorry. Continue.
All right. So she would take it upon herself to become a watcher. A watcher.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, she would be the person behind the screen. She would be the architect. She would be watching. and being like, hey, no.
Yeah, be like, no, don't do that.
So, yeah, okay. Well,
Which obviously probably wouldn't work, but
it wouldn't, because from a theological, like, from a philosophical, from a standpoint in terms of history, the phrase is, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And we as a species, and anyone with choice, is going to repeat history at some point or another.
oh yeah, 100%.
Like, I'm not going to deny that, but if we, the only way we grow is if we learn from our mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
If we know what happened, so we can prevent it from happening again. Which it doesn't always work, but knowing what
Sometimes it does, other times it doesn't.
Yeah, but but Isabelle does believe in her philosophy full heart, and I do think that's some of the like really good from a character standpoint, because she does believe in this.
Yeah, there is no doubt in her mind that this is exactly what needs to be done.
Yep, but yeah, and that does make for a good character. But what do you guys think? Which of Titan's characters were your favorites? Did you have any questions that weren't asked?
And do you absolutely hate me?
Who knows? The answer is yes.
I know, I hate myself too.
But let us know in the comments what you think about all this. Until then, this has been Throw in the Podcast, and we will see you guys next time. Ciao.